5 police cruisers pulled up in front of my house, sirens blazing, lights flashing red and blue across the street. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, some even stepped onto porches. Inside, my wife Emily, my sweet Emily, who hasn't walked since the accident, sat in her wheelchair, trembling, asking me through tears, "Why are they here for me?" And all of it because of one woman, Karen Whitmore, president of our HOA. What Karen didn't realize that day was this. Minutes later, the quiet hum of the street would be shattered by the thunder of 100 Harleys rolling down the block, and her entire empire of intimidation would come crashing down. Act 1. The conflict sparks. My name's David Russo, middle-aged, graying at the edges, bones that crack when I bend down too far, but still stubborn as hell. I used to ride with bikers in my younger years. Life was wild, messy, free. But all that changed after Emily's accident. One careless driver on the interstate, and suddenly her spine was shattered, our lives upended. We moved into this neighborhood for peace, a fresh start. We wanted community safety, quiet nights. And at first it seemed perfect, tree-lined streets, block parties, neighbors waving hello. But then, HOA elections happened. When Dimitri was president, things made sense. He cared. He worked with people, listened, fixed problems instead of creating them. But when he stepped down, that's when she took over. Karen Whitmore. Blonde bob sunglasses perched like a crown, clipboards always under her arm. She was the type of woman who turned power into poison. At first it was small things, letters about trash cans, complaints about lawn height, a warning about holiday lights. Annoying, but whatever. Then she saw the ramp, Emily's wheelchair ramp, the one that let her get in and out of the house with some dignity, the one that gave her independence. Karen sneered at it like it was graffiti. "That ramp is an eyesore. It brings down property values," she told me one morning, standing smug in my driveway. "You've got 30 days to remove it." I thought she was joking. I laughed. But she wasn't laughing. She had the clipboard-ready violation slip in hand. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about grass or garbage. She wanted to erase us. Act 2. Escalation and turning point. The letters kept coming. Every week a new fine, a new violation. Trash bins visible for 5 minutes too long. A garden decoration out of compliance. Even the paint shade on our front door, apparently it wasn't neighborhood approved. It wasn't just paper. She spread rumors too. Whispered that Emily was exaggerating her condition, that the wheelchair was just for sympathy. Do you know how cruel it is to hear neighbors, the ones you waved to, shared cookies with, suddenly question if your wife's disability is real? It crushed Emily. Nights she cried into my shoulder, begging me, "Maybe we should just sell the house, David. Maybe we should leave." And I'll admit it, I almost agreed. I felt powerless. One woman with a title had turned our sanctuary into a prison. I caught myself staring at for sale signs on other streets, imagining the relief of walking away. But then I'd look at Emily, at the way she gripped the armrests of her chair, at the spark in her eyes dimming day by day. No, I wasn't letting Karen win. I started fighting back. Quietly at first. I drafted petitions. I knocked on doors. I spoke to neighbors who'd been fined for nonsense Christmas lights, chalk drawings, kids' bikes left on the sidewalk. Slowly people opened up. We weren't the only ones under attack. That's when I filed for a recall election to vote Karen out. The neighborhood buzzed with tension. Some supported me. Some were terrified to even talk. Karen retaliated. She showed up with cookies one day, smiling sweetly while whispering threats in the same breath. She told people I was a troublemaker. Still, the petition grew. 50 signatures, then 70. Enough to trigger the recall. But Karen wasn't done. She was losing control and she hated it. So she escalated. One Friday afternoon, as Emily rolled outside to check the mailbox, a police cruiser slowed to a stop. Then another. Then 3 more. Until 5 patrol cars boxed in our streetlights, painting our house like a crime scene. Cops stepped out, hands on belts, asking for Emily by name. My wife froze. She looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. "What did I do?" she whispered. Karen stood at the corner, phone in hand, smirking like a queen, watching her enemies fall. That was the moment something snapped inside me. I stepped forward, blocking the cops. "My wife isn't answering a damn thing until you tell me what this is about." They mumbled about a complaint filed by the HOA president. Harassment threats. Nonsense words that made no sense. My disabled wife harassing anyone, it was insane. But Karen's smirk that told me all I needed to know. This wasn't about law. It was about intimidation. I felt my fists clench. For a moment I wanted to give up. I thought, she's too powerful. She has the HOA, the cops, the neighbors scared. But then I looked at Emily shaking in her chair, clutching her blanket like a lifeline. And I remembered the man I used to be, the man who rode with brothers on the open road who never backed down from bullies. I pulled out my phone, not to call a lawyer, not to call the HOA. I called family, my other family. Act 3, the showdown and justice. The cops lingered, unsure what to do. Karen strutted closer, recording on her phone, narrating loudly about how dangerous we were. Then faint at first I heard it, a low rumble, a growl, engines, dozens of them. And then like a wave crashing down, the roar of 100 Harleys filled the street. Headlights glared chrome, gleamed leather jackets lined up like an army. They poured into the neighborhood down my block, circling Karen's pristine little palace. Engines revved in unison, shaking the ground. Karen's face went from smug to pale. She screamed at the cops, "Do something, arrest them, arrest him." But the officers weren't buying it anymore. They'd seen the paperwork, they'd heard the neighbors whispering. And honestly, they didn't want 100 bikers breathing down their necks. One by one the cops backed away, climbed into their cruisers and drove off. That left Karen. She tried to shout over the engines, but her voice cracked. "This is harassment. This is illegal. You can't." But she could barely be heard. The bikers drowned her out, revving louder, filling the night with thunder. And then one of my old brothers stepped forward, pointing at Karen. His voice boomed. "This woman harassed a disabled woman. She brought cops to intimidate her. Enough is enough." Neighbors started filing out of their houses, and for once they didn't look at me with fear. They looked at Karen with disgust, with anger. They began shouting stories of fines, threats, bullying. The mob had turned. Karen's empire cracked. She screamed, cried, but no one defended her. Finally, clutching her phone, mascara streaked down her cheeks, she bolted back inside her house. The bikers let out one last deafening roar, rattling her windows before quieting down. The message was clear, her reign was over. Later that week, the recall went through. Karen was stripped of her title, her clipboard taken away. She disappeared from meetings, from emails, from power. And it all ended not with a handshake or a toast, but with the sight of her slamming her own front door shut, finally silenced. Closing line. Bullies fall the moment people stop being afraid and stand together instead.